Hi, everybody. This is Jeremiah with the San Diego HSMAI, and I have the pleasure of talking with Doug Kennedy today, president of the Kennedy Training Network. Hi, Doug. Thanks so much for making time for us.
Thanks, Jeremiah. I appreciate you reaching out and setting this up for us.
Now, this is very cool, and this is going to show hoteliers how to turn those calls that they get to their front desk from casual inquiries into solid reservations. So I think this is really, really good for our community. Just a little bit about Doug, for those of you who don't read or haven't seen his publications in the press. He puts these out quite often. He's got a great newsletter. I definitely recommend you should subscribe. But Doug has been in the hospitality industry really all his life. Just recently, he wrote a book that I really loved called "So You Really Like Working with People." And this is his story of growing up and learning service excellence.
I just happen to have a copy of Jeremiah. You know, I am a sales trainer. And
so,
thank you,
yeah,
by the way.
So you really love working with people. I love that title.
One of my Amazon reviews, so thank you.
You bet. No, I really enjoyed it. And it shows how you have developed yourself into a real world-class sales trainer. Nowadays, Doug trains with clients all over the United States, all over the world, really. He spends about 45 weeks a year on the road doing training. In San Diego, for example, his clients are Bartell Hotels and also the Evans Hotels. In the past, he's done consulting with Lowe's Coronado and the Hotel del Coronado. And all this experience has really showed him how to speak and how to teach on subjects such as hotel excellence, group sales, and also he does training for upselling at your front desk. Now, Doug, can you tell us a little bit about your experience and your involvement with HSMAI over the years?
Absolutely. And that's one of the reasons when you reached out, I was very happy to contribute to your, I guess, going to go out to your newsletter and your blog for the HSMAI San Diego. But I found HSMAI when I worked in hotel sales in the mid-1980s, when I was a lost sales guy in the basement of the Doral Golf Resort without any training. So I actually joined the Broward County, Florida chapter. Later, I became the vice president of education. When I was still a hotelier, I was just a member, and then I became the VP of education when I started in the training business. And I was a very active member through the 90s for HSMAI. In fact, my previous training company actually did a lot of HSMAI University in-person classes. And then in 2004, one of my biggest, most accomplishments I'm the most proud of was I was a part of an initiative with Bob Gilbert and a few other key people that he asked me to come on as the administrator, paid administrator, to start the revenue optimization group. So we got that going from 2004 to 2007. It's actually a huge success now. Of course, their conference every June. But started out in the chapter just like San Diego. So.
No, that's really taken off. I know I enjoyed it. So since then, since 1989, you went out on your entrepreneurial way, and you've been doing tons of training. You established the Kennedy Training Network in 2006. So that's 12 years of helping hotels improve their revenues through calls, sales, and upsells. So in today's webinar, we're really specifically going to show that people are still calling. They're still reaching out and looking for answers. And if the front desk staff or whoever is answering the phone, if they don't know how to talk to them correctly, you're losing the sale to the OTA, even though they reached out to you. So that's what we're going to go over today. I'm going to turn off my camera. Nobody wants to look at the top of my head while I'm writing. But I will be here just to field questions. And anybody at any time, please enter your questions in the chat. They're all private, so ask away. You know, there's no such thing as a dumb question. And let's start off here.
Let's do this.
Yes. So the obvious question: who are today's callers, and why are they still calling?
Hey, that sounds like a great name for a webinar. What do you think? I think it's a great first rhetorical question, because it's very interesting, because where I'm at now, I've been doing reservations training. It was very big in the 90s. My previous company had 7 trainers on the road. We had about 45 people total working, a lot of those in telephone mystery shopping, because more people, everybody called to make a hotel reservation back then, unless you were part of a group that came in on a rooming list or perhaps a wholesaler. But in the early 2000s, had you surveyed marketing people and said, and actually I always use this story, Jeremiah. I don't know if anybody watching is an H.G. Wells fan, not Orson
Oh
Welles,
yeah.
H.G., the original fiction writer, and his time machine. He had, the time machine was one of his first. He was one of the first people to write about that, I believe. And if you took an H.G. Wells time machine, took somebody from the early 2000s, brought them forward to today, showed them all the information we have online. We have websites, we have virtual tours, we have 3D floor plans, we have a ton of reviews on TripAdvisor and also on Booking.com and about a million other places. We have more images than ever before. And if you would have asked them then to go back into the year 2000 and predict, would anybody still call in 2018? They would have said no way. But the fact is, people still call. Now, of course, it varies by your market segment. If you are a resort, if you're in any kind of non-standardized lodging, you're getting the most calls. Now, we also have branded hotels. You mentioned some of my clients, Bartel Hotels has a Best Western. They have a Best Western, I believe it's called Prime, the Best Western Collection properties. They have also a Days Inn, and they have a Holiday Inn on the Bay. They get a lot of calls, but also branded hotels get calls. But I think especially when you get into an independent resort, or a lot of my clients are non-traditional lodging. So higher rates, longer stays, more confusing room types. Some of my clients, the Castle Hill Inn is my smallest client, has 31 rooms up in Newport, Rhode Island. However, I think it's something like 7 or 8 different room categories out of 31 rooms. So people still call, and they do still call it the brands, but the problem is a lot of brands have lost a passion. They've lost a focus for voice. Now, if you only look at voice bookings versus web bookings, you think the web is doing the heavy lifting. But one of my articles, and thank you for plugging those, I actually write 3 a month. If you go to KennedyTrainingNetwork.com, you can subscribe to my newsletter in the upper right corner. One of them I wrote was how to look at the interplay between voice and online. So you take some of those web bookings, you plug in the phone number to your long distance bill or your call tracking system, and you're going to see those people are calling too. Maybe they call prior to booking, or maybe they call after. So I guess I kind of still didn't answer your question, but I wanted to start off by talking about the fact that today, surprisingly, we have a lot of people still calling across every segment. And it's kind of funny because one of the starts of my training classes, and I know people are thinking, oh my gosh, the guy has no life. I'm home every weekend just about, but I leave out on Tuesday. I train Wednesday, Thursday, sometimes Friday. Usually I come home Friday or Saturday. My first question is, hey, everybody in my class, do you ever have them call up and say, hello, where are you? Are you at work? Oh, good. They want to know, where are you exactly? Now,
Yeah.
oh, I'm at work today, sir. Where are you exactly? And they want to know, if you're selling San Diego, that you're in San Diego and you're at the hotel, or if you're at a call center, you better be trained. And we do a lot of call center training where they're not actually there. So I guess you got to ask your question again. Who are the callers?
Well, they still call because I really think that human to human connection is critical. Like you said, where are you? It really means, do you really, really understand the property?
Yes.
But unfortunately, as you noted in one of your articles, a lot of times people pick up the phone and they just see their job as being website support. They're just there to
That's kind of where we're at.
Yeah,
And
they're just there to be website support. So how do we move beyond the place where somebody says, hey, I just want to check the rate? How do we move beyond that and create real human connection?
Let's jump into that. And I'm going to segue in answering that. I'm going to segue back to who are the callers and why do they call. But
Great.
What happens today when you call most places, they treat a reservation inquiry. And this is no fault of the reservation agent or the front desk associate, by the way. They haven't been trained. They haven't been asked what to do. But more often than not, they treat that inquiry as if it was a tech support call. So in other words, website search support. The person calls up, hey, I'm planning my trip. I got some questions. And they say, When is it? How many nights? How many people? How many beds? Got a pen? Here's the rates. Okay. So they tell them nothing more than what they could have seen online. Sometimes the caller says, okay, that sounds good, but I see this deluxe. What about this deluxe category or this specialty suite? Very often they say, have you been online? Because we got this great little website, and if you click on it, you can search the little tab that says accommodations, and there's pictures. It's kind of funny because sometimes they actually coach them. So that's what we don't want to do, all right? So what we do want to do, and I'll get to that in a minute regarding questioning. What exactly do you want to do tactically? But first thing we want to do, leaders, talk to your agents about this. If you're a frontline agent watching this, first thing we want to do is understand why people call. So 4 reasons. First of all, you get the people that just want to make a reservation. I call these the multitaskers. Now, a lot of people are pressing on their smartphone. They're searching these days. They don't bother to use a desktop, laptop, or even a tablet. They look online. They see your phone number. They click to call. That person just wants to make a reservation. It's funny. I ask agents, you know, do you ever hear people multitasking? More than once. Recently, I hear them saying, you know, I say, where do they call from? Oh, we get moms calling in the minivan going through the drive-thru at McDonald's. Okay. Apparently, this is a new thing. But I remember when my kids were little, yeah, I think I actually made to-do lists for long drives up the Florida Turnpike, you know. So they just want to call and book, all right? So number 2, they are all about the price. And that goes back to your question about the OTA shoppers. And they call up and literally say, hi, I just want to check the price. And a lot of agents say, okay, well, they wanted to check the price. The boss comes by, the manager says, hey, Jeremiah, why didn't you ask for the booking? And they say, oh, well, they just wanted to check a price. They really believe they just want to check a price. So I have to say, you know, do you think people are just curious what you charge? So that's another reason, but we've got to engage them. The last 2 reasons are the people that either are confused by online reviews, and if the trip is important enough. In other words, if it's bleisure, in San Diego, you get a lot of bleisure. I'll be doing bleisure myself there when I go back to train Evans Hotels at Catamaran and Torrey Pines for their call center. And we're actually staying over the weekend. So when someone's calling and they're going to be business but turning into leisure, or they're coming to San Diego for a vacation, they're going to have a lot more research time. And the more important the trip is, the more likely they are to read reviews. And if they read reviews, the more likely they are to call. Now, they will not say, hi, I read your review and I have a question about room 201. I hear it's noisy. But they will say, I have a question. Are your rooms noisy? And then the final reason, so they're just want to book, they're multitasking. They're all about the money because they just want the best value. They are confused by reviews, or the last one is they're simply overwhelmed with choice. And you think about, you know, years ago, not that many years ago, at least to me, when people actually had directories and hotel catalogs, they would get the San Diego Tourism Board's catalog of hotels, and they would call 3 or 4 places. Today, at a few clicks, you're literally looking at dozens or really in the 100 range of options. So they're overwhelmed, they're confused, or they're all about the price, or they just want to book. And that goes back to, you know, understanding who they are, okay? And then that kind of leads us to the tactical part, okay? Which is, what do we have to do? So what do we have to do? We got to ask better questions, and we got to tell stories. And I don't want to keep going without taking some questions or kicking it back to you, but that gets into the tactical part of what do we need to ask and what do we need to say.
Perfect. I'll follow up on that because better questions and stories that's fascinating. But you just said people that are multitasking, they're looking for competitive rates. It's an important trip, or they're confused, or they're overwhelmed by choices. That pretty much describes everybody except for the person who knows it all. Yeah. Right. So that's the majority of people out there. So that's why voice is so important. And now I would love to get into, you know, how do we ask better questions? How do we tell stories? That's fascinating. Please go for it.
Yeah, so my buddy Rob, as my wife says, my friend, singular, because, you know, I don't have that many left from childhood, but she's got a whole long list. But my friend Rob, he's on the road. He's actually in the technology training business, and he is a Hilton guy. Sorry, Marriott. Actually, I think it might be his company, but he stays with Hilton Honors. He is actually doing a project here in South Florida. He's at the Hampton Inn, okay? But in March, he's bringing his wife and his junior in high school son down, and they're staying over, okay? So he's usually books on his app for the nearest Hampton Inn or Hilton Garden. But for that trip, I know he's researching, and he's asking me questions about this one versus that one, and I'm pretty sure he's going to call. All right, so I'm sorry, what was your question?
So somebody says, I'm just calling to check a rate. That's a very specific question. How do you lead it into telling stories and asking better questions to get them going?
So out of the inquiry calls, and we have reconfirm calls, we have cancellation calls, we have information calls. And by the way, a lot of that is what's dropping. If you see call volume dropping, a lot of times it's the person that no longer calls to ask what the taxi fare is because they have an Uber app. But the people that remain that are calling, okay, you have, I don't know, maybe 90%, 85% start off with 1 or 2 questions. Do you have rooms? How much are your rooms? Or what are your rates? So they're usually going to ask those 2 questions. And that's it. They're not going to say, hey, Jeremiah, would you please convince me to stay at your hotel? You know, so we have to engage them. If your website search report, you say, how many nights, what are your dates? How many people? How many nights? Okay, here's the price. You want to book it? Okay, if that's all we do, we might as well be Siri, Cortana, or Alexa, because they will take our jobs. But what we want to do instead is something they can't do, which is handle out-of-the-box questions. So we want to get the dates, number of people, how many beds. We want to click enter. And I always say in my training, when you click enter, that is your mental prompt to say the following. As I'm checking those dates, Jeremiah, are there any questions I can answer for you about our location or our amenities? And that is a nice way of saying, who are you and why did you call me and why did you not book online? Doesn't that sound better?
That's much better. I love that. Can you please repeat that, because it sounds like such a great tip.
I'm kind of going into character for my training, Doug Kennedy, the trainer, but you know, we got to try to make it fun and make people smile.
Yeah.
But what you got to do is say, as I'm checking those rates, or as I'm checking your dates for those rates, as I'm checking, are there any questions I can answer for you about our location or about our amenities? Okay, you can have your own version of that. Pretty much like, what questions do you have for me? Now, half the time, the person is shocked that somebody actually asked them this, because the last person didn't ask this. Probably the next place they call is not going to ask this. So half the time they say, no, I'm good, no questions. But about half a minute, 2 minutes later, they say, you know what, actually, I do have a question. You're right there at the hotel, right? And then they start to engage you with opinion questions. Is it nice? Is this room worth it? Is this extra value added rate option worth it, etc. So half the time they don't ask a question, but they might later. The other half the time they actually have a question, and they will say, yeah, actually I do have a question. Because if you don't ask, you're sitting there staring at your screen while it's searching. And I don't care if you got Opera or whatever you got for your property management system, you know, they're slow. So you might as well say, hey, click, enter, next, whatever it is, as I'm checking availability, do you have any questions for me? And that opens it up to a conversation and moves it away from a transaction of website search support.
That one question right there is the difference between just doing website search support, like you said, and actually connecting with somebody. And that makes a huge difference to revenues, I'm sure. In your experience, what are the differences in ADR or RevPAR for actual phone calls versus website? Is there a difference?
Let me tell you, there can be. There may not be if all you're doing is quoting the price. Now, it's interesting. In my consulting business, I'm not a consultant. I'm a trainer. As part of the training, I do consulting. So when I have clients that ask me to come in and take a look at their operation, I actually start out with doing an assessment. Most of my clients hire me to train. While I'm there, I ask them some questions about their reporting. So they really need to make sure their people have been trained to upsell. and measure it. So let me give you some tips. And by the way, to answer your question, if the manager, the leader, does the following, they will deliver a higher ADR. So number one, show them the rooms. Now, I cannot tell you how many hotels, I train call centers. It's a little harder, but if I don't mind plugging Bartel Hotels, which has the, they have the Humphreys Half Moon Inn, they have the Dana on Mission Bay, they have the Days Inn, SeaWorld, they have the Holiday Inn Bayside. Now I got to name them all. I don't want to leave any out. Pacific Terrace, and they have the Best Western Island Palms. Hopefully I got them all GMs. But we actually put them on a bus. They're at a call center in San Diego. We put them on a bus. We take them there. Okay, and they've been with me 4 years now. Their numbers, there's actually at my website an article I wrote with their permission last year about how they've increased revenues. About half of the gain is on conversion, that they're converting more calls. The other half is on ADR because they're talking more about the rooms. So step number one, show your people the rooms. Now that's different. That's harder because it's a call center. I actually train hotels, Jeremiah, where the person sitting in the reservation office hasn't seen a room since the day they started 2 years ago on employee orientation. You know, when you do the walkthrough with like 20 new hires from every department. So show them the rooms. Number two, to measure it, look at revenue per booking per agent. Okay, so take your total revenue sold, which is a metric a lot of people look at, but divide that by the number of bookings that agent made, and then compare agent A, B, C, and D, and you will find that you know, you start a little competition there, and you'll find right away some people are already doing it on their own, and then you start to make people pay attention, and you know, they'll deliver for you if you ask them. So yes, you can get a higher ADR by voice, but you may not now if you've not trained to it, if you've not measured it, and then of course incentivizing. Now, some people have a per incident incentive for upselling. So they give $5 to the front desk if you upsell the guest to a suite or a view room. And, you know, most of them don't want to do that in reservations because they are afraid that guests might have asked for the suite. So what you should be doing, and that's true, they may have, they self-upsell. Some people want to book the suite. But what you should be doing is doing the incentive based on your revenue per booking numbers and make sure that people are increasing. So yes, you can deliver a higher ADR if you train your people on voice.
And I really like how you give the suggestion of getting people to the rooms. Actually, hey, you know, you might have done a renovation recently and the call staff has no idea about it. So get them to the rooms, because a lot of times people are going to call and they might say something like, oh, have you gone to our website? Have you checked out our rooms? And they're not able to tell a story about, you really got to check out the corner suite because it gets this beautiful light in the afternoon. Yeah. And tell a personal story, right?
Tell the story of them enjoying the room. And along that same note, the area. A lot of times the people that work in the hotel, you know, I don't know about you, but when I worked, I lived over here and I worked over there. So I lived in Hollywood, Florida. I drove to the Doral, which is now called Doral, Florida. At the end of the day, I went back to Hollywood, you know, so I didn't even know what was in West Dade County. And yet again, the person who calls that wants that local authentic experience because they're a leisure guest or their weekend getaway that's coming over from Phoenix or trying to think of your other feeder markets or up in the mountain areas of Central California. And they had those questions, you know, by the way, is there a good restaurant? So, you know, get them out in the neighborhoods, get them in the rooms. You're going to see more bookings. You're going to get higher rates, my friend.
Excellent. Excellent. And I wanted to also ask about rates a little bit, to step back. And so somebody calls, they're the multitasker. I'm looking at a price in Expedia right now that's a little lower than what you have on your website. And maybe they haven't even decided on your hotel yet. So what do you say in those situations?
All right. So again, if you haven't addressed this, you know, I've actually done training. I must say it's getting better in the last year or two. But I've done training, you know, where you ask the leader, the manager, so do people know that you want to convert those OTA shoppers? Oh, yeah, yeah. But then you ask the agents, you know, what happens when the guy says he's shopping on OTA? Well, some of them say, oh, well, we just tell them they can book it there if they want or whichever they prefer. And I actually have done, you know, two years ago, maybe when the brands were all doing book direct with us, I did a test. I write for Hotel News Now. By the way, I highly recommend Hotel News Now. It's a great publication by Star, STR. And I also recommend some others, hotelmarketing.com, Hotel Online, and Hotel News Resource for hoteliers. All good. I happen to write for those, but I don't want to be unfair to any of my people. But for Hotel News Now, because they're read by a lot of the brand higher-ups and the investors, I did a piece where I, at the time of book direct with the brand, I called up brand call centers. And I got an agent on the phone, and I was on Expedia or Booking.com. And when they quoted their rate, I said, I see the same rate online when I did. By the way, they were out of parity a lot more than the revenue manager would like to admit. But when they were the same, I would ask them, okay, I see the same rate online. Pause, 2, 3. Okay, thanks. Bye. And these were brand call centers in the middle of a brand initiative to book direct and save, and nobody told the call centers. Okay. So I would be surprised if it's any different now. Brands, if you want to hire me, we have about 15 people doing telephone mystery shopping. Be glad to do that research for you. But you better try your own hoteliers. Call up your own hotel. Try the same exercise. What we should be saying is, when they say, I'm just checking a rate, okay, as I'm checking availability, any questions for me? No, I'm good. Okay, here's the rate. All right. Oh, actually, I do have a question. And you start to engage them a little bit. And then you say, okay, now that I've answered your questions, can I secure that for you? Now you have that person that was 3 clicks away from booking to the checkout in the shopping cart. Okay. This is, you know what? That guy wants my business. That guy sounds really helpful. That woman sounds helpful. I'm going to go with her. Now, if the rate is lower, make sure that your people can match it. But don't just say, okay, we'll match it. So you got to play the games. I'm giving you free Doug Kennedy KTN training tip. Instead of saying, oh, the rate is $20 less on Expedia. Okay, well, first of all, they have to verify it. Okay. And then they don't just want to say, okay, we'll match it. You know, you have to verify it because maybe they're looking at advanced purchase, non-refundable. But once you match it and it is in fact lower, which hopefully is not happening, but if it is, you can say, you know what, let me check further. Put them on hold, count to 5, pick it back up, say, you know what, here's what I can do. If we can lock this in for you now, I can match that rate. Okay, so you got to make it seem like you're going above and beyond. Okay, I don't make my participants in the training classes lie and say, let me ask the manager. If they're really not asking the manager, just say, let me check further, and either put them on hold briefly or just let the line go dead. You know, as you say, I'm sorry, not go dead, but just let the conversation cease for a moment. Let me check further. Okay, I'll tell you what I could do. If we can lock this in now, here's what I can do. Now, again, depending on your distribution, you know, you should be empowering your staff to, in those times, verify and match. And hey, you know, I don't want to tell you to violate Expedia and OTA contracts, but if you can find a lower rate and help them qualify for it, my understanding is they require rate parity online. Okay, so we're talking about a voice channel here. So verify, match, empower your staff, give them the verbiage that if we lock it in now, here's what we can do.
It really is about that verbiage, right? If somebody doesn't have the go-to phrase, then they're going to try to make it up on the spot, and that takes a couple extra seconds, and then the person says, let me think about it.
And it's gone.
And it's gone, yeah.
They're like, yeah, let me think about it. Okay, bye, call you back.
Right,
you know,
true story. I was, you know, walk-in guests are always the best because you know they're going to book something, right? So I was up at a trade show in Monterey, and we walked into a hotel, and said, okay, well, we need to book something. And the guy behind the desk said, great. What you do is you go to hotelstonight.com.
Oh no.
And,
oh no.
And he said, adding in, so.
And by the way,
so we did.
Here's the ironic thing. The guy probably thought he was being nice and helping you, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, let me let you in on the insider story. I tell a story. I'm not going to go into it here, but I did the same thing when I started at the front desk in Lexington, Kentucky, growing up. I wanted to help that guest get the best deal. I would give discounts during the Kentucky Derby week. So I tell a funny story. That's actually how I learned the concept of revenue management from, I wouldn't say it was a write-up, but it was probably pretty close to a verbal warning. I thought it was the right thing to do, but what I thought you were going to say was when the guest says, oh, 200, huh? I got hotel tonight here, and then they're not allowed to match that. So, I know that's a low rate, and that one may involve some rate strategy questions based on how many times that happens. So I'm going to leave that one up to check with your revenue manager. But to me, I would have a serious debate at your hotel if we shouldn't go ahead and match it, assuming there's no other guests around and there's some other, you have to look at the lobby layout and how busy is it at this time, how many rooms are left, so.
I see.
Interesting story though. Wait over there. Imagine a business traveler, like wait 10 minutes. My company is paying, of course I have my own company, but if I work for somebody else and time is of the essence, I mean, even it being my own company, if I'm going to save $10 by waiting 10 minutes and I got to check in and go meet clients, put me in,
Yeah. Shifting topics a little bit. Okay. Let's say a family's traveling and they really don't know what exactly they need. They don't know if this hotel is by a park or anything like that. Or and then when they just call and they just say, I'm calling to check rates, how do you get into that conversation where you figure out what they need? What are some good phrases to politely find out about their situation?
That sounds like a San Diego question. So whoever sent that over is good because you have, I think it's a heavy leisure city. As I mentioned, I travel very frequently, and maybe once or twice I bring my 18-year-old son. My daughter's at college. She doesn't travel with us much, or sometimes I'll bring my wife. But I'm doing it in San Diego because it's a great city. So now that person may say, I'm coming with my husband on business. I'm on business. I'm bringing my husband. And what is there to do? That's pretty rare. But what you want to do is start to unmask their story. So as I'm checking availability, any questions I can answer for you. And then you gave me a family scenario, right?
Yeah.
Actually, I do have a question. We're coming out to San Diego with the kids. And how far are you from the San Diego Zoo? Okay. So you could say, oh, first of all, a lot of people are like, do you have MapQuest or Google Maps? But, most people will say, oh, we're 15 minutes and it's about 5 miles or whatever it is. But then that you'd be answering their question. What you really want to do is unmask their story a little bit further. You say, oh, yes, it's a short drive to San Diego. Are you coming here on vacation? Really? Oh, have you been to San Diego before? How old are those kids? And you might find out they're, 3 and 5 or 13 and 15. Sometimes 23 and 25. People say they're bringing their kids and you find out the kids are in their 20s or 30s. So we call this unmasking the story. Now, actually, I'm going to grab a prop. You're calling to make a reservation. Hello, what are your dates? How many people? How many nights? I'm coming out on May the 3rd for 3 nights. Okay, we have a rate. You want to book it? Okay, thanks. I'll call around. Thanks, bye. That's what we get. But if we ask questions, the person does. Some people call up, hey, I'm coming to San Diego. But a lot of people are like, hello, I'm coming to San Diego, and I'm coming on business, and I'm bringing my wife. Oh, wonderful, sir. Let me check those dates for you. How many people? How many beds? What are your dates? Oh, wonderful. As I'm searching availability, are there any questions you have for me? Actually, I do have a question. And you can unmask their story. I used to carry this in my class, but some people think it's creepy. But If you go to my YouTube channel, KennedyTrainingNetwork.com, we actually have a video segment called Unmasking the Caller's Story, and we have the actors, have the mask on a black curtain, and they have their story, and the reservation agent offline, off screen, asks questions, and then you unmask their story. That's visually what I'm trying to say, and then you find out there's a mom or dad is planning the trip because mom's working, and he's a stay-at-home dad. I mean, you find out what the story is, and then you sell to that story.
Well, using that mask, it really reminds me of the theater, right? Happy, sad face. And it seems like you use a lot of role playing in your training, things like that. During role plays, there's always a complication. So what kind of complications have you taught your students to overcome to help the hotel secure the reservations? Any fun, strange examples you can give us?
That's a good one. A lot of times, of course, in role playing, we actually structure our role playing, so it's actually skill rehearsal, and we do things like assign them a call story. Okay. Sometimes we have our KTN mystery shoppers call into the class live, and they role play some. Because if you just get, you and I are working in a hotel, your front desk, and I'm reservations, and we sit down, we're gonna make it into a big joke. Yeah. Like, oh yeah, I'm coming there with my therapy boa constrictor, or what was it?
Cockatoo, peacock.
Peacock, I think recently actually someone did. Maybe that's not so far-fetched, but what we actually do is role play those things, but we also have a segment, and this is a good one for you to do, listeners and viewers. Have them list out the challenges that they have, like of why people will not book now. Some of it relates to the process, some relates to the price. So the price is where they say they're going to shop around or they're going to look online. So in that case, you want to give them the verbiage to say, well, we have our lowest available rates are always offered here. If you find something less, let me know. But why don't we lock it in now? You can always cancel up until 72 hours or 30 days. Okay, so it's a price thing, but sometimes it's price or process. Sometimes it's product. You're that far from the airport, or that far from the zoo. Oh, well, are you going to have any free time? Are you going to have a car? Are you familiar with Pacific Beach? Because I know you're here on business and you're staying over the weekend, but you really don't have to go down to the Gaslamp District, because here at Pacific Beach, you can step right out and imagine the weekend. You can go down to duck dive. You can watch. Do you rollerblade or no? Well, you can take a stroll along the Pacific coast and imagine yourself not even going in the car. So now, on the other hand, if they have to be in one location A and you're in location Z, I think most people would agree better to lose the sale through being honest. But, there's people who think San Diego is basically the Gaslamp District, the zoo, and, maybe across the Coronado Bridge. They don't even know what Pacific Beach is or La Jolla.
That's so true. I've only been to Ventura once, and I thought the only thing you see there was the pier, right? So you just pick up a magazine, you look at the one iconic location, and how do I get there? That's, without some good recommendations, well, that's all I have. Now, when you're doing this kind of training, rates are always going up and down. Like we talked about rate parity. What if, for example, they are much more expensive than their competitor, but they provide a superior value and they know it? What are some of the you never want to disparage a competitor, but how do you up talk yourself?
I like that, up talk.
Yeah.
By the way, I really like your book too. This is a great book. And this book, I don't know where you come up with the stuff, but it just has a ton of really interesting, I would call them tidbits and tactics. So you're very dialed into the nuance of sales is what I love. And what you just said is exactly what you don't want to do. What you said not to do is one of our main points. It's one thing if you're the Lowe's Coronado and Hotel del Coronado, you're both luxury hotels and one is more historic, and etc. But when you're, I don't want to pick on any brands because I always say Motel 6 is somebody's Ritz-Carlton. But if you're an economy brand, if you're a luxury brand, and let's do extremes here, a luxury brand, and someone is saying, the economy brand is half the price. You don't want to say, well, they don't have a pool, their pool is dinky, it's not heated. Bring it back to what you have that's unique. Brand X is good. Here's what's unique about us. Have you had a chance to look at our reviews? We take great care of our guests. We have a fabulous housekeeping staff here. Are you going to have much time to enjoy the hotel? Here's good things about us. So focus on your strengths. It's not about, once again, better to lose the sale through being honest. Maybe they are on a budget, but next, they're bringing their kids to SeaWorld and they're going to drop probably today $3,000 for a week easily. But, so they need to stay at an economy hotel. But next time, when it's the wife and the husband coming for the anniversary, or the same-sex couple coming for the anniversary, and it's just the two of them, they might spring for that extra money. So, or they might at least have, I'd rather see them lose the sale. And that's one of the problems with OTA bookings. People don't have their expectation that they show up and it wasn't what they expected. And if you read one-star reviews at hotels, a lot of them say I booked online through the third party by name and it wasn't what I expected. So part of it is losing the sale when it's not a good match.
Unvarnished truth is a beautiful thing. It sets the right expectation. People come and they enjoy themselves. They leave better reviews. They come back. I don't want to monopolize the conversation. If there's any questions people want to ask, please just put them in the chat, because we're very fortunate to have this time here with you.
Round in the corner. So let's see what else we got out there.
Yeah.
But I love HSMAI. Love San Diego. It's I have a lot of travel throughout California. I love the West Coast. I'm kind of an East Coast rooted guy, but with a lot of family on this side of the continent. But beautiful out there. So.
Well, and people kind of getting back into the story. People that live here, they know what to recommend to their friends and family, and you're helping them use that knowledge when somebody calls to get out of technical support mode and get into the get to know you, let me help you mode. That's really good. You also mentioned that if people don't get out of that mode, that Siri and they're going to get replaced. A lot of hotels are investing in chatbots and AI. What do you think about all that?
Great. I love that subject, and it's interesting because I did mention earlier, hotelmarketing.com, today's issue, has a link to a story from the Harvard Business Review. And I believe the title it's probably on their homepage, hotelmarketing.com today. Something about, when is technology not good, or when not to use technology for customer service. And it was about, customer service in general, but the main takeaway there that they said, which gave me a lot of validation, was use high tech, but when that customer, that guest in our case, needs somebody, make it real easy to get to them. And yeah, we should have Siri, Cortana, and Alexa. Well, it will actually be their first cousins. It'll be, let's see, it'll be Larry from Lowe's or Connie from Comfort Inn. Your chat bot coming up, eventually talking to you with the avatar maybe. But when somebody needs to talk to somebody, why do we not have this, by the way? Why don't we have a pop-up video customer service? Okay, we have online chat, but why don't we have an agent sitting there with a pop-up camera? The technology is already out there. There's a couple of companies already doing this, but not in hotels. We're in the space and time business. Okay, we sell space for time. We better be good at service, because at the end we give them nothing but a bill under the door, or in their email nowadays, because we don't put it under the door. But you better make it about the experience. And why don't we have a click to video chat button that, you know, and the funny thing is a lot of millennials support this. My nephew who's 38 now, let's see, yeah, 38. He's one of the first millennials, I believe. Most people say 1980 and on. And he lives out in Colorado. He's typical, stereotypical millennial. By the way, I love millennials. And I think millennials really get some unfair bashing on social media, especially the millennial job interview viral thing going around. My best employees, many of them are millennials. But I asked my nephew, you know, he's typical millennial in that he's not married. He has long-term girlfriend. He has 3 dogs, you know, has a lot of fun, no stress. Maybe he's got the right idea, but you know, he goes away with his buddies. He goes skiing in the winter. He goes whitewater rafting in the summer up to the mountains. And I said, "Do you plan the trip?" Because he's kind of the leader and he knows a lot about travel. And he's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Well, do you ever call?" "Yeah, I do it online." "Really? You don't ever call?" He's like, "You know why we never call? Because you never get anybody on the phone. It's just press this, press that. And when you do get somebody, they're in a call center in another country and they have no idea what you're asking about. That's why they don't call." You know, so now the post millennials, which is my kids, which are Gen Zers or I generation, some call them, in the late 90s, late 97 and 99, they have been raised on video chat. Okay, so they love face-to-face. My daughter actually banks. I got her set up with TD Bank when she went off to New York City to college, and when she had a couple of things come up with her account, there was a deposit that we couldn't identify. It was turned out to be a refund from the university, and I was like, "Julia, have you called?" "No, I'm gonna go in." Oh, a couple weeks later, "Have you called yet? We need to know if it's real money we can spend on your tuition." "No, I'm going to go in." She wanted to go in, you know, and she did. She went in to TD Bank. If you've ever been to TD Bank, they have people to help you when you need to be helped. Now, she deposits her check through the take a picture of your check app, which I do use the ATM, but I just cannot take a picture and throw the check away. You know, so she uses automation. But when she needs something, she goes in. And at TD Bank, there's somebody there, you know, and that's what we need. Yeah, we need Siri, Cortana, and Alexa, but we need talk to somebody right now, or even better, video chat.
Right. You bring up the bank example, and I always get aggravated when I call the bank because I have to go through 10 steps and wait for like a minute and a half just to talk to somebody. And that's all I want to do is just operator, 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 you know, and it really irks me because they have my money. Right. So,
and when you say operator now, it says, "I don't understand that response. We don't understand that." You press 0, invalid entry. You know, it used to be like 0 was like a sure way to get somebody. Not anymore, right?
So you're saying that if we can just cut through all that so that instantly they can get somebody, that is going to be the competitive advantage that gets somebody to choose Hotel A over Hotel B.
Be high tech, embrace it all. You know, have the local information app, but when somebody needs you, you know, the same article, the Harvard Business Review article, actually referenced the Amazon store that opened in Seattle. I'm actually going to speak at a conference in Seattle on Thursday. Maybe I'll get to go to the Amazon store. But, you know, I'm sure everybody heard, I know you've heard, you're dialed into what's going on, where you just go in and put stuff in your bag and walk out, right? Feels pretty weird. But they're also staffed with humans. So if somebody has a question, you know, there's people all around to answer that, because they're not sitting there going, "Oh, how's your day going?" "Good, that's good. Ching, ching, ching," right? They're actually there to talk to you.
So use people for a much higher strategic function than
Don't eliminate them.
Operating the cash register.
Yeah, don't just embrace tech to cut cost and push people away to tech, because guess what? You will be a commodity, hotel world. Your brands will become obsolete. Rooms will be distributed through OTAs. Owners of hotels will wonder, why do we need a brand? You know, they just sell us through Expedia. Differentiate yourself with people. You can't copy people. You can copy a white remote control in a sanitized wrapper. You can copy a curved shower curtain. I'm going back to amenities added in this decade, this yeah, this decade pretty much, or this century. You know, you can copy having a being able to Chromecast from your device to watch your Netflix on the TV. But you can't copy people so easy.
And when you read reviews on TripAdvisor, that's what comes out a lot of the times. You know, we were having a hard time. The radiator was on the fritz, yeah. But Susan came up and she helped us move all the stuff. And it's all about how people bent over backwards and went above and beyond to provide service. That really is it, yeah. Right?
Or not. You know, it is funny because I read the 1 stars and the 5 stars when I'm a potential guest. And exactly what you said, Jeremiah, it's all about the people there too. You know, I asked for help at the front desk and they were not helpful. Nobody followed up. They didn't pick up the phone. It rang and rang. You know, in the 5-star reviews, I had a problem, but this young woman at the front desk, she was awesome. You know, so there you go. But I hope this has been helpful. And if there's any other questions we have, I'm glad to field them.
If we don't have any more questions right now, maybe we can do just a last word.
Sure.
I would love you to talk a little bit about service excellence. You know, maybe a quick story from your book. That was something that it really inspired me, and I think about that a lot. Can you tell people?
Well, I was quite impressed that you read it because I know you're a copywriter, and by the way, it made me embarrassed for the typos I later found. But I appreciate you actually reading it and being generous with that comment. But gosh, I guess, you know, the main story I will tell you was when I grew up. I worked from age 9 to 20, and I worked for my parents. My parents were small-time entrepreneurs, and I worked for Mom in the Kennedy craft shop. It was probably the size of probably the size of a hotel room. But I watched her grow that business, and I was fascinated by business. I guess I'm a natural-born entrepreneur, and I watched her grow that business. You know, she started it because we needed money. My dad had a good job, but we had 4 kids, and there were some medical issues that, you know, just killed the budget. We didn't have the safety nets we had, you know, in the early 60s. That legislation wasn't passed. And so it was a big hole to dig out of. Mom started the craft shop, and I watched her grow that business, you know, from age 9 to 20. And when I was 20 as a student in college, first in my family to go to college because of that craft store, you know, they sold it and they moved on. And that's when I started in hotels. But as I share in the book, you know, at the start of my book, and the end of my book starts in Mom's craft shop. And it was all about the people. It had a little bit to do with crafts, but a lot to do with people. And there was a lot of other craft shops in my hometown, Lexington, Kentucky. But people would drive literally 20, 30 minutes, which is a long way in a town of 60,000 people in the 1960s. And they would drive all the way across town, passing 2 or 3 other stores. Because when they walked in, there was Mrs. Kraft. Hey, how are you today, Sally? Hello, Jane. How's your dog? Did your kid make it back from the military deployment in Vietnam? You know, she knew everybody's story. Who needed a little talk on their troubled marriage? Who had a grandbaby? You know, so, and then later I worked for the Marriott family. And I watched the Marriott family because they had 125 hotels when I started at the Lexington Marriott Resort Griffin Gate in 1981. As a bellman. And actually I started in banquets and doorman briefly, and then I worked mostly as you know, the bellman and the bell stand jobs. But they did the same thing, you know. So I guess I'll end today with, you know, what Mom always said, and she didn't do her, you know, highfalutin consulting, you know, suit and tie talk. She basically called it being a people person. But you know, I sophisticated up a little. I up consulted, to use your term. But, you know, it's about 10% to do with crafts and about 90% to do with people. She didn't say it that way. She said it's all about the people. But today, the hotel business has maybe 20% to do with rooms, okay? Because in your comp set, everybody charges the same because they're all getting the same Hotelligence 360, Star, all the BI we have out there. And we're all copycatting. You know, we might have some advantages with location. It's about 20% at the most to do with those things, like rate and place, and about 80% with the people.
So it comes down to when somebody calls you, that's your opening. That's your in to be a person and show that you're a person and get to know their story and show that you care, to show that you know the property, show that you want their business. That's a huge opportunity compared to just a regular online booking.
Hey, that's a great segue back to our theme. Because at the end of the day, when somebody calls, imagine what it costs to get a pay-per-click. Okay, and we have a phone call. All right, we probably paid for a pay-per-click, and now the phone is ringing. Okay, and someone wants to talk to us. And what do? We put them on hold. We transfer it off-site, even if there's someone on, even if they ask for in-house on-site, or we rush through them. You know, if you're busy, just say, hey, you've reached the front desk. I'm happy to help you. I'm helping some other guests. Are you going to be at your phone? Oh, yeah, call me back. I'm glad you're there. Somebody will call you back, even if it's an hour, but they're there. You know, so, yeah, why not? You know, talk to people. How hard is it? Have a conversation. Ask some questions. Find out their story. You know, unmask what's behind their plans. And then tell them the story of them enjoying your hotel, resort, you know, whatever it is. So I hope this has been helpful. I appreciate all the work you're doing, you know, for HSMAI. I know you have a lot of other things going on. And here you are, you know, taking time out to do this.
Well, likewise. Likewise. And
well, it's good press for me, so I appreciate the publicity, but you're the volunteer, so thank you very much, Jeremiah, and I hope it's been helpful.
It really has. I mean, you find out somebody's story and you find out, oh, you have a baby. Oh, would you like a crib? We can bring a crib up to the room. You can't find that on the website. You can't find that on the OTAs. That's a differentiator. And they're going to say, thank you. That was really helped.
How old is your baby? Oh. Now I say, my baby is 18. All good.
Well, I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for sharing your experience, your stories. And I want to have this conversation rolling on. So if anybody's listening to this and you would like to continue this, where can they reach you? Where can they pick your brain, I guess?
If you just Google search Doug Kennedy Hotel Training, you can find me. Or it's my website is Kennedy with 2 N's, KennedyTrainingNetwork.com. So there is a Douglas Kennedy famous fiction author. That's not me. But if you add the word hotel, I'll usually come up. And I'm always happy. You know, I get all the time emails from random people, like students. A lot of people help me, so I'm always here to help others.
That's right. We'll pay it forward. Appreciate it.
All right.
Thank you so much, Doug. Thanks so much for everybody for listening in, and looking forward to talking with you again soon.
All right. Be well, Jeremiah. Okay. Take care.
Likewise.